the past several years, I have tried to sound the alarm to various groups, hoping to reach the hearts and the minds of the young boys and the men who tune into this channel. I've touched different subjects that were the current theme, the current event in our time, starting back with the Floyd riots and all the things that have ensued since really 2020. We've gone downhill really fast. The other day I was having a conversation with one of the women who recently stopped being a teacher after 30 years because she was tired of the system, how things had changed. They were no longer teaching children, they were indoctrinating them. They were alienating them from their parents with the Common Core curriculum, things that didn't make sense, overcomplicating simple things, not really educating the children to be functional. And we were having a conversation about what's going on in our borders and all of the destructive things that have taken place in our culture. And there was a video that she had recently watched on some social media platform where a French woman had been assaulted, a pregnant French woman had been assaulted by some unwanted visitors who wanted her seat on the bus. And so when I got home, I got on Twitter, looked up just typed in French woman thrown off a bus, and it pulled up this video. And a couple of things were shocking to me. First of all was the brazen act of just taking what they wanted from somebody in a country that wasn't theirs. They literally snatched this woman out of her seat and threw her off the bus, which was a couple of steps high, and she landed hard. I would be surprised if her child survived it. But another thing that was shocking but not surprising is absolutely nobody helped the woman. There were several angles of cameras, people video in the aftermath, but nobody drugged those dudes off that bus and changed their perspective of life. And that sent me down a rabbit hole. And I saw here in America where there were some other unwanted visitors basically tap dancing on some dude's head that had been knocked out in a parking lot in a gas station. And the next time I spoke to her, the conversation got really deep because she's the same age as I am, and we have both watched the country change on such a drastic level. There was a period of time in America where there were common threads. Our faith, family, and our love of our country. Those were the fibers that bound us together. And it seemed like we were making really good progress in all of the things that had divided us up until 20, 30 years ago. And things started to change, but they really started to escalate their intensity when Obama became president, when everything was supposed to change for the better, when there was no more glass ceiling for colored folks and all these things. It should have been a monumental celebration, but it was actually the ushering in of the destruction of the very fabric that held us together. But as I started to really pay attention to what's going on, pay attention to the bread and circuses that we are being enticed and encouraged to put so much emphasis on, like who someone chooses to marry, what somebody pretends to be, all of these things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of life. We have given the platform and the microphone to the weakest, most pathetic people in our culture from different sects, and every single one of these groups that's crying foul in this country is causing a division in this country. And a lot of times these divisions are against the same type of people. When I look at what's going on in our border, I'm in Texas, And so to see the so-called leader of this country oppose the governor from this massive bleeding out of our country or bleeding in of our country, it's very clear that there's an objective that these people that are being ushered into our country, that are being catered to come into our country, they're coming here to serve a purpose. All of this is by design, and this path that we're on has been set for a while. Yuri Bezmenov, a defector from the Soviet Union, gave a very clear warning to America in the 80s about where we were headed, and now we have reached critical mass in this division campaign. And now, just like the Romans did, we're bringing in the barbarians, talking about putting them into our military and our police ranks. And a lot of people are focusing on the minutia of this, but there's a much bigger plan at hand here. You know, there's a lot of truth in the movies that we're fed through Hollywood. They tell us a lot of things that are truths in these movies. And in the second Sicario movie, one of the generals made a comment that is very, very true in the theater of disrupting a country and causing an insurgency in that country. And what he said was, a country is much easier to invade and to conquer when the people in that country are already fighting amongst themselves. I'm 53 years old, and never in my life, even when I was young and racism still had a hold on the country to some extent, I've never seen anything like what we have today. And it's because the idiocracy has been force-fed to Americans, and we're supposed to not only accept it, but to tolerate and celebrate it. And people are sick and tired of it. But what's going to happen when you pull back and you look at an overview of what the system is, what the people that truly pull the strings are saying? What's going to happen is the inevitable truth that everyone who has been a facilitator in the destruction of our country, they will inevitably come to a point where they reach out their hand and beg for the help of the very group that they have spent the last decade of their lives demeaning, degrading, and eviscerating. When I look at all of the liberals and the losers who are out in the streets of America advocating for an ideology that looks at them as scourge and scum, to advocate for people who would gladly remove their heads from, if it weren't in our country, it would be comical. But the truth of the matter is these people are welcoming people into their backyard who absolutely hate them. And the culture that these people come from isn't civilized all the time. A lot of these people that are coming over are animals. And we're seeing the effect of integration, because these people have no intention of integrating and assimilating to Western culture. They're agents of chaos. They are here to destroy. They're here to disrupt. And they will be allowed, and it will even be facilitated for them to do so. We see our government giving these people things that they don't even give to our veterans. And it's going to continue to go this way because the people who run this country wish it to be so. They are erasing the borders of America like they have in Europe. And what this is going to lead to is, once these people become restless, even more so than they already are, they will start to impose their will upon these different sects of society who have spent so much time just blasting people who really aren't their foes in life. We're already seeing this play out in the black neighborhood. The black neighborhood has been flooded with these migrants, and they're taking resources that have been withheld from those communities. Now, because of this situation, black people, black Americans will inevitably find themselves in a situation where they look to their white American brothers and sisters begging for help. And because of this new woke ideology that has blamed current white folks for stuff that was done in this country hundreds of years ago, rightfully so, many white people will turn their backs on those people. When these uninvited guests turn their will against the females, like they have done in many cities, they'll no longer be able to move freely in the cities that they pay taxes in. Once these people start to have their way, women will desperately look for American men to help and to save them, the same men that they have spent the last 10, 20, 30 years dogging, demeaning, and emasculating. They will desperately ask these men to help them from these savages, and men, from American men who have been beaten to a pulp, will rightfully so turn their backs. The people in the alphabet community who have lambasted and degraded those of us who live traditional lifestyles, calling us scourge and mental patients, those of us who believe in family, those people, once these uninvited guests start to have their way and to inflict the will of their ideology on them, they will seek the help of their Christian brothers and sisters from America, and rightfully so. Many of them will turn their backs on them. We have fallen prey to probably the most powerful weapon that Satan has, and that's the wedge of divisiveness. I was told a story a long time ago about how that was the most powerful tool that the devil had at his disposal. And at the time, I was a young man, I was ignorant, and I didn't understand it. But as I look at our country today, I look at the wedges that have been driven and driven by our own hand, whether it be political, ideological, or some other made up division that we have. We have fallen prey to these things that don't matter. We have paid attention to the bread and circuses, to this show, and all of this is a show. And instead of paying attention to things that really matter, we have pointed the finger at people over there. We have blamed that group for where we are in our lives, while the people who are truly at fault for the way that things are in a negative way in many people's lives, the same people who cause that are the same people who are causing what we're going through today and will reap the benefits thereof. I think what's going to end up happening in this country is going to be one of two things, but neither of them is going to be peaceful. Neither one of them is going to be pretty. One way or another, the millennial generation, the Gen Zs, the Gen X's that are still capable, they're all going to have to pay the debt of freedom. They're all going to have to answer that call, and there is definitely going to be a conflict for our country. Either we will continue to be pacified by the bread and circuses, the sporting games, the Twitch streams, the social media, all of the things that don't matter, or we will wake up from this slumber and realize that the most important thing that we have as human beings is our community. It's the people that are around us in our communities, no matter what color they are. It's about surrounding yourself with good people. Pretty soon, this beautiful music that we've been dancing to in America is going to stop. And when it stops, every man and woman and many children are going to be tested beyond their wildest imagination. They're going to be tested on many levels, but at a very fundamental level, it's either going to be slavery or freedom. It's either going to be good will prevail or evil will prevail. The lines that have been drawn are very, very clear. everyone who populates these groups with their ists and isms that are pointing fingers at people in our society that have had nothing to do with their fate in life. Those people are all on the same side. No matter what flag they carry, they're all on the same side. If you agree with terminating children, if you agree with ruining children, if you agree with castigating a whole race of people because of the way you feel and think, if you believe in anything, any of these movements that sought to destroy this country, you're all on the same side. And in my book, the way that I see it, that's the side of evil. And when it's all said and done, one side will win and one side will perish. The important thing in this point right now is to make sure that you know what side you're on and you're fully prepared to do whatever it is that you're called to do. Out.